Welcome back to our show, Let's Talk Stocks. We're coming to you, of course, live from the 19th Regional Investments and Capital Markets Conference here at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. Joining me is Stuart South, and he is from, you'd never guessed it, Sagicor Investments. That's a company that you want to be talking to about building out your portfolio. Welcome to the show, Stuart.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Talk to me. The conference, how are you seeing it? The 19th Regional Investments and Capital Markets Conference. Sagicor is a real regional company. You've been around the investments for a while. How you rate this conference? What are you seeing? What you like?
Yeah, it's a beautiful conference. We look forward to it at Sagicor every year. We're one of the sponsors, in fact, for this year. And it's a nice occasion for all the different industry players to really come together and then show the different stakeholders what strides we're making in the industry. I like the exchange of ideas. It's an occasion where companies can come and learn the different things that they can do inside the business so that they can take the business to the next level. So I think the theme this year, it talks about concept to growth, right? And I think that is like a key pertinent point for a lot of businesses, because when businesses come to us at Sagicor, a lot of times they come with ideas. And these ideas need a framework behind them. They need capital. And these are things that, we help them with so that they can bring that idea into actual realization. So I'm happy to be here as part of the Sagicor team. I'm actually from the Capital Markets Unit, which is the investment banking arm of Sagicor Group Jamaica. And yeah, it's the conference, as I said, it's something that we look forward to every year. Yeah.
Stuart, and listening to you, and we're talking about the Capital Markets Conference, but Sagicor has been a key player in the development and growth of this market. You, however, have seen the evolution of the market. Where we're coming from. Earlier when in the conference yesterday, we were talking about from the days of open outcry. I'm not sure you'd know that.
You're giving away my age,
But the evolution of Jamaica's capital markets, and by extension the region, how you see that, and how are you seeing it from the Sagicor's point of view?
So I think it was Mr. Fisher who spoke about the market generally and just economic cycles. So one perspective that we're looking at it, right, is that the economy goes through different economic cycles, right? And as well as industries go through different stages of growth, right? Right now, we are in an environment that's a bit challenging, but challenges are not unique to any economy, right? When you look as far back as probably 10 years ago, interest rates were like at, high double digits. And while we're not right there now, it gives us context to know that, things can change very quickly. So from our perspective, what we want to do is to, one, acknowledge where we are in time, and then two, to find strategies that companies, that different stakeholders can employ to ensure longevity for the future. Sagicor is a company that's been around for quite a long time. We're part of a wider group that's over 100 years old, right? So we have that longevity, and we have that longevity in thinking as well. So the industry itself, I would say Jamaica is really poised for amazing things. You find even though the macro environment globally is challenging, there are a lot of things happening within Jamaica that bodes well for investment in the future. And one of them, for example, is the government's reduction in debt to GDP. and that is a massive achievement. And to achieve 74% by I think 2025, what that allows is more fiscal space for the government to spend in areas not dedicated to initially interest. Because for a long time, our economic context was that the government was simply, spending money on interest. Now it frees up space with a reduction in debt to GDP to spend in other productive areas. And I think companies that can, companies that can serve in that space will do well in the future.
It's interesting that you went back and put context on the conversation by looking back at 10 years ago when we're talking about high interest rates and so on. And then even now in this scenario where we are saying, hey, we are in a high interest rate environment, which is low compared to what it was back then. But in context of this high interest rate, what has happened coming out of COVID, central banks tightening monetary policy, and we saw the impact of that. But the market, though hasn't really taken any run, has still stood firm, and companies are still being listed and so on. But we're now looking at the possibility of the end of that tightening cycle when we look certainly internationally at the positioning of the Fed and so on. Is that something Jamaica should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think absolutely. So in Jamaica, recall, so the US is one of our major trade partners, and then two, we have a dollarized economy. We have free exchange of US dollars, so it means that anything that the US does impacts us in Jamaica. With respect to where the Fed might go in terms of rates, I think Mr. Fisher, he's the real guru when it comes to projections, right? But we're at a stage right now where inflation is cooling, right? So that's positive. And then because inflation is cooling, we could, more or less assume that the Fed is closer than further away from the tightening cycle. I guess the question is, how long will they, keep rates at this level, or if they will cut in the near future? However, I think it's more likely that rates will not increase significantly above current levels than below. So what that means for us is that, the governor was just speaking, I didn't get to hear him, right? But what that means is that I know that the central bank locally in Jamaica will be looking towards the actions of the Fed. Right now,
we've been holding rates steady for last maybe 6 months.
Correct. But I think the most encouraging thing is that inflation is coming now under control. And I think the challenge brought about by COVID was a bit unique because the world essentially just shut down. And so that created a lot of challenges in terms of, supply chains, availability of goods. And so that caused prices to go out of whack. So now that we're entering now a more normalized period, I think we should see some sort of way forward in terms of where inflation will go from now. Yeah.
Now, when you look at the businesses that have been coming to you, you're in the capital market space at Sagicor. The businesses, what are the needs that you're seeing? They are looking for funding? Are you seeing companies whose balance sheet is allowing for additional debt, or are you, looking at companies and saying, based on this analysis, I think between where you are as a company and where the market is, you might be better served with some equity, giving you some free space and time, patient capital, whether private or public. Talk to me about what you're seeing.
Yeah, so it depends on the space. So a lot of the small to medium-sized companies that we see coming to us are really looking for that patient capital, as you said. And I heard someone talk in a conference about the space for different players within the market. I think there's space for players that can provide early stage capital to a lot of these companies so that they can grow and then scale and then come to a position where they can really tap into the capital markets, at a later point in time, and maybe even eventually list as well. So definitely the small to medium sized companies are looking for, I would say, patient capital, strategic capital as well, and not capital just from anybody. So from, a partner that can open up doors in terms of business opportunities. So that's one key area. In terms of the larger players, I spoke about the opening of the fiscal space and just the government's mandate, right? One of the key things that you see in Jamaica, a key focus is infrastructure.
And that's where I wanted
right?
I'm very happy. I'm very happy you went there, because there was a time when, while there was a need for major infrastructural expenditure, and most of the times it had to be done by government through adding debt to the government's coffers. We've now seen with the government giving that space where the opportunities are for private capital to participate in infrastructural development. Is that a thing that Sagicor is looking at now?
Absolutely. And I don't want to give away our cards, right? But I mean, when you look at the major growth drivers in Jamaica, all of it needs infrastructure to support it, right? So when you talk about connectivity in terms of the road network, when you look at serving the markets through the energy needs, these are key drivers of the capital markets. You also need water for any type of commercial activity. So when you think of any major utility, you think about connectivity, you think about logistics. These are things that are extremely important at this juncture in time. And for Jamaica to now get to the next level in terms of achieving growth north of 2%, for example, we need these key infrastructure assets, and therefore players within that sector, would certainly bode well.
While we're definitely talking about big infrastructure, big capital outlay for some of these projects, and you usually have special types of investors that, and the FSC has particular ways that they look at some of these kind of investments. Are there possible ways for the regular Joe to participate in these?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the minister spoke about the listing of an infrastructure fund. So that's one way. Basically, players like us within the capital markets would package the investments in a way and list it on the stock exchange for then investors to participate in. So that's one way. And then just generally, when we structure certain assets, for example, a bond, which is a type of debt security. Through participation in that bond, investors can also get exposure to a lot of these projects, because these large infrastructure projects are typically funded with a very high level of debt, right? And so participation in that debt would give investors essentially a steady stream of interest income from those securities for a very long runway, right? Because these debt securities tend to be like very long in terms of tenor. So those are two main ways. And then also some private institutions might actually have dedicated funds whereby investors can invest directly into the fund, correct, and then get exposure to these infrastructure assets. So there are definitely creative ways of doing it, but I won't quite give away our secrets right now.
Is Sagicor, so Jamaica has, in a way, found itself at the center of the region, and I'm very careful to say at the center of the region in terms of the evolution of our capital markets. Sagicor and the way it's aligned and as also at the very epicenter of the region in terms of investments and capital market participation. Are we seeing big participation from across the region? And if we're not, should we be pushing to ensure that the entire region is participating in this evolution?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think every region, every country within the region has its unique challenges. In Jamaica, we've made significant strides within the capital markets, and it's a very vibrant industry. The nature and characteristics of some of the other jurisdictions are a bit different, which pose their own challenges. But what I would say regionally, when you look towards, for example, Guyana, and the tremendous growth that Guyana is seeing, right? I think last time I checked, their GDP was about 11 billion US dollars, coming from, under $1 billion US dollars a few years ago. It's tremendous growth. And that growth means that you need a vibrant market. And so a lot of the players, even within Jamaica and Trinidad, the rest of the Caribbean, are looking towards Guyana as like the new frontier. And I think what you see at this conference, for example, is a lot of collaboration, because we know that sometimes to take down a certain deal, it's too big for just one player, right? And therefore, and also secondly, just by nature of the characteristics of our market, you want diversification, right? So it means that you need collaboration on certain deals, and that's kind of where I see the real.
Stuart, I'm happy you went Guyana. I'm really happy you went Guyana, because while we've seen certain developments in Jamaica in terms of capital markets, we know the availability of capital in Trinidad. I mean, oil has been doing well and so on. Guyana as the new frontier, one of the fastest growing economies, not in the region, but in the world. Is there a silver lining? Is there that new opportunity for the region that we just simply cannot afford to miss?
Yeah, absolutely. And so if Guyana does well, it means the Caribbean does well, right? And so absolutely, this is an opportunity we can't miss as a region. The amount of wealth that this oil economy will now unlock, it will change lives. And it's an opportunity now for everyone within the industry to really, pull up the socks and, collaborate and really build wealth for not just Guyanese, for everyone throughout the Caribbean. So absolutely, it's a key moment in time, and we stand ready to support that drive.
All right. Any final words that you want to leave with the viewers, Sagicor Investments, and what you're doing going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that. So I just want to reiterate that right now we're in a challenging environment, and we acknowledge that, but there are still things that businesses can do to thrive, right? And not just survive, to thrive in an environment like this. And I think it's incumbent on you to come and have discussions with companies like us at Sagicor Investments to see what you can do and what you can change, and any novel ideas in terms of raising capital that will meet your needs.
All right, so there you have it from Stuart South, not little, one of the gurus at Sagicor Investments. Talk to them about their investment strategy, helping you to build your portfolio. Stuart, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.